is with Thermaltake at CES 2025, and we're going to start with, I'm not going to say a lie, but there's a suspicious thing on the board behind me. Infinite colours. And that's not true. They've got many colours, but not infinite. 16 apparently, of which we have a selection here. On the left, the Tower 600, a case we have seen before in gravel sand. We move across to the Tower 600 in bubble pink, and then we have not big letters at the top. We have here in small letters, Lightyear green. They were apparently going to call this case Emerald. That's not Emerald. Lightyear, not sure what it means, but I do like the colour. I also like the contrast of the green and the white. And then we have the new colour of 2025, Future Dusk. Last year was all hydrangea blue. Future Dusk is a kind of slightly purplish with a slightly different greyish on that interior panel. It's smart and it's catchy. I'm looking forward to seeing that under white lighting, because the lighting here in this room is a little bit peculiar and sepia. Then we have the Tower 600 in racing green. We've asked for review samples in racing green. I don't think I've ever yet seen one of them. Very smart. And finally, Bumblebee yellow, which I have indeed seen. And then we see what these colours can mean when Thermaltake goes to town. The Tower 250, which is Mini ITX. So on the right there, mint strawberry, in other words, green and pink combo, or as I think of it, watermelon. And next to that on the left, the Tower 250 in butter caramel, or yellow and brown. Very neat. Now, I personally think they could have done a better job picking other colour combos, but those two are smart. And then we have the TR100. We saw this portable case at Computex last year. It's small, it's cheap, about $125 as I recall. However, this LCD accessory is not included in that price. That's around $80. So this is the TR100 in Snow White with the accessory. Next to that, we have the hydrangea blue I was just referring to. And then, and you won't be shocked to learn, this is bubble pink, and you can see it in basic case without the accessory. Then we have mint strawberry, also without the accessory. And TR100 in black doesn't get a name as such, it's just TR100. And there you see the stripped down aesthetic with the LCD. I do also like the TR100 in matcha green. As I say, they do not do infinite colours, and without taking the mickey too much, but 16 is a huge number, and apparently they have not yet end-of-lifed any of the existing colours. All the new colours are additional. We have the View 600. The significant thing here with this big boy case is how much space it has. Glass at the front, glass at the side. First question you have to have is, does this case actually flow air? In fact, yes, it does. We have fans on the floor of the case, which obviously are drawing in from the bottom compartment. Rear fan for exhaust, AIO in the roof, huge fans in the side. If Matt looks at the 3140s in the side, you can see an enormous area of cooling. However, if he comes back around the front and keeps going around, you can see the separation between those fans and the graphics card. It's tight. There's but a few millimeters. However, that enormous GPU, which is 40 series at the moment, fits nice and easy. And it's fairly obvious when you look at the enormous amount of space in the front here, that even if the biggest 5090 is indeed vast and huge, as we're sure it will be, there'll be plenty of space for it without any bother. And you can see in this View 600 in Snow just how much space there is. Changing from black to white on the case really seems to open up the interior. The View 390 next to that's an interesting case. It has one piece of curved tempered glass, vertical GPU, and when we move around the front we can see it's mesh. When we first saw this case it was solid, and that didn't make a lot of sense to us. Now it looks very good and effective. One interesting point, Matt, if you come around the side here and look at the side view of the View 390, look at the EPS cables, look at the main power. It's a conventional motherboard, regular cables. However, when we slide to the right, to the View 600, we can see that the motherboard there is backside power. You can see the solder points for the EPS, but there are no cables. They're all hiding out the back. View 600 supports the hidden cable systems from the different motherboard manufacturers. A passing note of two whacking great big AIOs, 360 and 420. These are for workstations with the latest Intel and AMD processors. Absolutely huge, clearly an industrial finish. including on the pump housing. And then we have the AX500 Snow. We've seen this case before. It's quite tall, loads of mesh, and if you look in the main side of it, support for plenty of fans. And with all the white RGB on the go, or rather white on the go, you can see the interior crystal clear. However, this case here to the left, the AX700, is a bigger version of that 500. It's much more expensive. It's priced around 400, maybe even 500 for the case itself. And the case goes down to that point there. This pedestal is another 150. That's intended to house a secondary power supply, or indeed the main power supply if you want to put it down bottom, and a bunch of extra drive bays. So I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, well, that's workstation, maybe AI workstation, multiple graphics cards. But no, apparently, according to Thermaltake, it will also be sold to enthusiasts who want to cram in loads of custom loop cooling. This surprises me, but they are adamant that they do indeed have customers into this size of case for conventional, albeit over-the-top PC building. The wittily named WAir is an air cooler, and it has support for up to 500 watts of TDP, which sounds nuts. When we take this cooler and we turn it, you can see the enormous cold plate. So while the 500 watts sounds hugely ambitious, with that size of cold plate, it is possible. The thing is, it's a heat pipe cooler. It doesn't have a vapor chamber, so it's conventional technology. So 500 watts, until we see it in action, frankly, it'd be hard to believe, might be true. It's a bold claim, that's for certain. Driving sims. This can be very expensive hardware. However, this bundle of hardware from Thermaltake, encompassing all the hardware you see here, is priced around the $500 mark. And that is about half of what it would cost for one high-end wheel or one high-end set of pedals. This is an entirely new market for Thermaltake, and they're very excited about it, as we can see. As we can see, this sim is using 3 curve monitors. There's the Thermaltake housed PC down to the right, there's a mouse and keyboard on the keyboard tray, and it has the Thermaltake hardware. The chassis, including the seats, priced just over $1,000, $1,200 from memory. We've got just over $500 of hardware added to that, and then obviously we've got the screens and the PC. All in, I reckon this PC build is going to cost you $5,000 to $6,000 for a fully kitted out sim, and very nice it looks too. But compared to what's next door, we have the full-on system. So the actuators will set you back about another $4,000, and you will note that the steering wheel's by SimCube, so that's going to cost you about $1,000 in its own right, and indeed the hardware behind the wheel, and also the pedals. You're racking up the thousands each time there. Compared to the sim we just saw, which I'm estimating at $6,000 or maybe $7,000, this is going to go past 10 without a moment's thought. But the experience is intended to be way next level. Thermaltake was telling us if you buy this hardware, you get a lifetime license for the SimuCube software, which means that your hardware is going to continue working forever and won't suddenly stop on you. In addition to driving sims, we have flying sims. Clearly, there's a certain similarity here, and again, you're seeing a Thermaltake seat. But the hardware attached, including hardware from Thrustmaster, is completely different. As we know, some people are so into their Microsoft Flight Sim that they'll actually buy a setup purely for this one game, because it's more than a game, it's practically a lifestyle. Very impressive. And we're just told now by Kenny Lin, the boss of Thermaltake, that when Formula One comes to America in March for the new season, they expect to see an uptick in demand for the sims. This is very much driven by events. Power supplies. Let's start with the Tiddler. SFX, rated at 1200 watts. Previously we saw SFX, and this is ATX 3.1, we saw up to 1000 watts, so that's a big step. Then we have analog and digital power supplies. If you want to switch between single rail and multi-rail on this analog, you can gain overcurrent protection, or alternatively, you can enhance your overclocking. However, if you want the full Monty, you go digital with this Tough Power D2000. I'm going to try picking it up one-handed. Oh my lord. Which has a whole host of connections for 12-volt 2x6s. In other words, should support two 5090s when they officially exist later today. The funny thing with the D2000 being rated at 2000 watts is it's not for the American market because their power sockets can't handle that kind of power draw. The Americans will be limited to the Tough Power TF3 1300 watt, and behind that the TF3 1650 watt. And let me just grab the 1650 and try the same one-handed trick. And we can see there it has two 12-volt 2x6s. In other words, it can support any single graphics card, might possibly support dual graphics cards, but that is the kind of hardware that's very high-end for a new 5090. On the screen, we have a beta of Thermaltake's 3.0 software, which has proven to be very flaky on this first day of CES. If I touch anything, it's likely to just shut down. But this software is of critical importance to a whole array of products. As we can see, if we move to the right and look at this case, which is decked out with an LCD on the pump body and a whole load of RGB fans. But if you look up at the top, you can see that that LCD screen reporting CPU temperature is inverted, and that's because the software can't flip it. It should be a simple thing to do. In fact, you can physically flip the LCD quite straightforwardly, but it hasn't happened. That's the nature of beta software. We move past a load of RGB DDR5 memory. We saw this at Computex. We keep on going, we keep on moving. Here we have an example of some Toughram XG RGB D5 with CKD. What's that? They're CUDimms. In other words, they're for the new Intel Arrow Lake hardware, rated at 7200 mega transfers, which is fairly lowly. So it looks good, but it's not particularly enthusiast or performance. And then we have a whole bunch of RGB fans. So the TS120-140s use MagFloe 2.0. I'm going to grab one of these, just remove it. There's the connector. I put it back on, and it comes back into life. A ring of RGB, and we have strips of RGB on the side as well. About to take it off to show you the top, but of course if I do that, it'll stop working, so I shan't do that. Various fans in familiar colors. And then we come across to Toughram EX12 and EX14, also using MagFloe 2.0. If I just grab one of those. These are chunky big boys, but you'll note the motor housing is absolutely enormous. And that's because it's an upgraded 2.0 motor, which is fully sealed. If I put my finger on this here, you can see the same. And that'll start in time. And then we have more of the RGB that requires the TT RGB plus 3.0. So MagFloe 360 Ultra at the top in snow and down the bottom in black, which I think means that these two logos are reversed. And if I pull one of these screens, it comes away. You can see the connection inside. And when I put this back on, we wait a few seconds and we pray a little bit. Can take 5 seconds. I've done it again.
Didn't sound like
No, it didn't. No. There we go. That's a better click. Let's see what happens this time. There we go. Second time lucky. And Thermaltake was saying, among other things, if your screen suffers a problem and needs to be returned for RMA, you can simply unclip the housing and send it off. The cooling system will continue functioning. That is purely cosmetic and to cover the pump and to give you the LCD. All the rest of the hardware is entirely separate. And it's a similar story, just skipping past the Project Trinity 3D VC that we have previously seen, the VC part being for vapor chamber. That seems to have been in development now for quite some while. And we move on instead to MaGCurve. And you can see here a selection. One screen there, another screen at the top. But you get a better view with these two versions just here to the right, where you can actually see the curve in all its glory. And I'm going to try removing one of those again. So you can see similar inside, but different. And I replace it. And you get the checkerboard as it, and there we go. Practice makes perfect. And here we have the Argent E700 chair in space grey with suede. This is $1,000, and I think I'm going to sign off sitting. This has been Kitguru with Thermaltake at CES 2025. It's kitguru.net on the web, and we're also on TikTok.